I still remember the moment I arrived at my best friend's house that day. Sunlight spilling over the quiet suburban street, warming the sidewalks like it was trying to hold me together. I wasn't sure why my heart felt so heavy, why my chest seemed to carry a weight I couldn't name. I had been running through the park alone, thoughts spinning in endless loops, until the familiar idea struck me. I needed to see Jace. My best friend, my anchor in a world that sometimes felt impossibly big, had always been there for me, even when I was falling apart. But this time, I wasn't just going to knock on his door. I needed more than a hello. I needed someone to remind me who I was. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Touch of Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive and helps spread hope. I rang the doorbell, my hands trembling slightly. The sound echoed through the hallway, followed by the familiar shuffle of footsteps. The door swung open, and there he was, Jace, older than I remembered, wearing a faded green hoodie and jeans that had probably seen better days. His messy dark hair fell over his forehead as he smiled, but something in his eyes told me he had changed. We hugged, and I felt the familiar comfort of friendship, though the world outside seemed far away. "Hey," he said softly, "it's been a while, huh?" "Too long," I admitted. I just needed to see you." Jace hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly. "Come in." The house smelled like fresh bread and something sweet, vanilla maybe, lingering from the kitchen. Sunlight poured through the large bay window, casting a golden glow across the living room. The walls were lined with family photos, Jace and his mom, both smiling widely, a younger Jace with a baseball glove, a tiny puppy on the sofa. Everything seemed so normal, so safe. And yet, I couldn't shake the anxious knot in my stomach. As we walked into the kitchen, Jace's mom appeared from around the corner. She was a striking woman, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, wearing a soft blue blouse and an apron dusted with flour. Her eyes softened when she saw me, and for a brief moment it felt like the whole room exhaled. "Olivia," she said, her voice warm but tinged with surprise. "It's been a long time since you were last here." I nodded, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, I guess I've been busy." Her gaze lingered on me, studying me as if she could see all the small cracks in my life, the parts of me I didn't even let myself admit. Then she said something I didn't expect, something that shook me to my core. "You're not a kid anymore, Olivia," she said gently. Her words didn't feel like a scolding or judgment. They felt like recognition, like someone finally seeing me as I really was, with all my fears, all my mistakes, and all my strength. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't ready for anyone to see me unravel. Jace's mom busied herself at the stove, stirring a pot of something fragrant, maybe soup or stew, and I wandered over to the counter. I felt the smooth wooden surface beneath my hands and thought about how much had changed since I last visited this house. I had spent so much time hiding, working odd jobs, and trying to survive that I forgot what it felt like to belong somewhere, to have someone care without judgment. "Sit," Jace's mom said, gesturing to the small kitchen table. "You must be starving. Lunch is almost ready." I hesitated, then took the seat, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, the faint hum of life in this kitchen, and a strange sense of calm washing over me. Jace joined me, sliding into the chair opposite mine. He looked nervous, like he had something to say but didn't know how to start. I've noticed you've been distant," he admitted after a long pause, his voice low. "I didn't want to push, but I was worried about you." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing. "I didn't mean to worry you," I said, my voice shaking slightly. I've been figuring things out, I guess." He nodded, and the silence stretched between us, filled with memories of laughter, shared secrets, and late-night talks that had once made the world feel like it belonged to us alone. Then, as if sensing my vulnerability, Jace reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. "You don't have to figure it all out alone," he said softly. "I'm here. We're in this together." For a moment I felt the walls I had built around my heart start to crumble. But the real turning point came when his mom brought over a steaming bowl of soup, setting it in front of me with care. She smiled, the kind of smile that made you feel seen, even when the world had ignored you. "You've grown so much, Olivia," she said again, as if speaking to the invisible parts of me I'd kept hidden. "I see a young woman who's been through a lot, and yet you're still here. You're still standing. That's something to be proud of." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Pride wasn't something I had allowed myself in years. Life had been a constant struggle, and somewhere along the way, I had forgotten that surviving wasn't just enough. It was remarkable. I realized I had been seeing myself as someone small, fragile, and unworthy, when in truth I had been quietly courageous all along. We ate in silence for a while, the comforting warmth of the food and the sun blending into a sense of security I hadn't felt in a long time. Jace's mom moved around the kitchen, humming softly, and I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and hope. I remembered the nights we had spent in this very kitchen as kids, sneaking cookies and telling stories that felt bigger than life. Now I was older, scarred in ways I didn't expect, but still capable of laughter, still capable of joy. After lunch, Jace and I wandered into the backyard. The grass was tall and sun-warmed, the trees swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. I watched him laugh at something I said, a small, silly joke, and felt a spark of the old magic that had always existed between us. "I miss this," I admitted quietly. I missed feeling normal. He looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen before, and I realized that this wasn't just a reunion, this was a turning point. The world outside was still chaotic, still unfair, but here, in this backyard, I felt a flicker of hope. "Olivia," Jace said after a long pause, "you're not just my best friend. You're someone who matters. You always have." I blinked, tears threatening to spill again. "Thank you," I whispered. I needed to hear that." We sat on the swing together, the metal creaking softly, and for the first time in a long time I allowed myself to breathe, to let go of the weight I had been carrying. I thought about all the nights I had spent alone, all the doubts that had gnawed at me, and realized that this moment was proof that things could change, that kindness and care could exist in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. Later, as the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the yard, we walked back inside. Jace's mom was in the living room now, organizing books on the shelves. She glanced up and smiled warmly, and something in that smile made me realize how rare it was to feel truly seen. "You've always been brave, Olivia," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Sometimes bravery just looks like surviving." Her words lingered in the air long after they were spoken. I realized that day that bravery didn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispered quietly in the moments we kept going despite everything. I had survived, yes, but more than that, I had returned to the people who mattered, willing to let them in again. As I got ready to leave, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and hope. Sadness, because the moment couldn't last forever. Hope, because I knew that this visit had changed me in ways I couldn't fully explain. I hugged Jace and his mom, feeling a warmth that had been missing from my life for far too long. "Come back soon," Jace said softly. "You don't have to wait until things get hard to visit. We're always here," and for the first time in a long time, I believed him. Before I go, I want to ask you, dear viewer, if this story touched your heart even a little,